The rock garden conveys the powerful force of nature. They put little stones on one each other and make a wish. So I'm going to make my wish too. Tulips and beautiful windmills, which represent the New Zealand. Designed by cities, the International Outdoor Garden is a collaborative space.
Korean movie star. Handsome.
The Thai garden creates an exotic atmosphere. Indoor is an exhibition space that showcases gardens using environmentally friendly materials that cannot be installed outdoors. The first art gallery in the world, which is on the water. The table is full of delicious Korean traditional food.
So spicy. It's a real taste of Cholado.
There are a lot of different types of accommodations here in Suncheon. And tonight I'm going to stay over there. It looks nice, cozy and cute. So I'm saying you bye-bye for today and I will see you tomorrow. Good night, everyone!
A city of passionate vigor. A city of brilliant light. A place combining the past, present, and future.
Monthly highlights.
Brand new version of After 10.
Arirang's first-rate current affairs talk show, After 10.
Apparently it was a big success.
Look into the current agenda of Korea with prominent figures from across the field.
Keep the tradition of
After 10 returns as a daily program to bring informative and insightful stories to you every day. If you're looking for bold, to-the-point discussions on current affairs, don't miss After 10.
Who is next?
YG's new group survival program, Win, Who is Next?
그 길을 빨아보겠다고.
A battle to become YG's next big bang, the rookie boy group Winner. Follow the fierce survival competition of 11 trainees. YG's new idol group is in the making. Watch the process on Win, Who is Next? A new photo documentary on Korea, In Frame. Rediscover Korea through the lens of esteemed photographers. We start with a 10-part project taken with world-famous Magnum photographers. Korea in the eyes of photographers. Rediscover Korea in the photographic documentary, In Frame. All about the arts of Korea, Arts Avenue. Look at the trends and artistry of Korean culture and art across segments. Arts Avenue is coming back in Season 2 with a new look. The ever-expanding world of Korean arts. See it unfold on Arts Avenue.
맞짱 배틀이라 그래가지고 너희들 데리고 JYP로 찾아가게 될 거야.
올스타를 출연한다면 해볼 만하겠죠.
와, 되게 재밌겠다.
Asia's heartbeat, Arirang.
One beautiful day, he came into my heart. Slowly, quietly, they have kept their ways of life through time. And they have given me unforgettable memories to last.
Started out on the letter, but it was all she could take. Conversations she had before, but they're about to break. Somewhere along the line, she got more than she wanted.
Dynamic Busan.
Up next in the broadcast, investigative committees wasted no time in raising politically sensitive issues on day 2 of the National Assembly's annual government audit. North Korea makes it very public that it wants the United States to leave the communist regime alone if Washington wants to ease tensions on the Korean peninsula. And as the October 17th deadline over the U.S. debt limit draws near, optimism blooms over a potential deal to end America's government shutdown. Primetime News begins now.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Tuesday, October 15th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Yoo Ji-hye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin at Korea's National Assembly, where lawmakers fired questions at government officials on the second day of the nation's largest ever parliamentary audit.
Contentious issues including President Park's scale-back pension program and North Korean-related policies took center stage. Arirang News' Kim Young-gil has a wrap-up of day 2 of the parliamentary probe.
In the run-up to the audit, both ruling and opposition party lawmakers had vowed to do their best to conduct a thorough and fair audit in a cordial manner. Monday might have tested their resolve, but Tuesday's schedule could push their best intentions to the limit as a number of politically sensitive issues are up for discussion. Lawmakers probed the Board of Audit and Inspection amid suspicions the organization had been filing favorable audit reports for the controversial and hugely expensive Four Rivers Restoration Project, which was the pet project of former President Lee Myung-bak. The Audit Board Secretary General Kim Young-ho said that Lee also bears some responsibility for his plan to eventually link the rivers in a single canal, which is presumed to have aggravated the water quality of the rivers. Lawmakers also continued to quiz officials about the Park administration's promised pension program. All senior citizens aged 65 or above were to receive a monthly allowance of $187, but the plan was scaled back to providing a monthly allowance of between $94 to $187 to only the poorest 70%. Ruling Saenuri Party lawmakers said scaling the plan back was the best option for the nation's financial health. Opposition lawmakers said the president had gone back on a key campaign pledge. Meanwhile, lawmakers also questioned Unification Minister Ryu Gil-jae about the administration's North Korea policies. Minister Ryu told lawmakers that the North notified the South on Tuesday that it's inappropriate to invite foreign investors to the joint inter-Korean Kaesong industrial complex, the day after the South indefinitely postponed a business session aimed at attracting foreign investors. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
And moving now to a direct message from North Korea to the United States at a UN committee meeting on Monday.
The regime's representative at the UN urged Washington to abandon its hostile policies towards Pyongyang and called for a formal peace treaty. Our foreign affairs correspondent Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
Speaking at the United Nations Disarmament and Security First Committee on Monday, North Korean ambassador to the UN Shin Sun-ho called on the United States to ensure that the North Korean regime will be left unharmed.
If the United States is truly in favor of easing tension and lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula, it should show by abandoning its hostile policy towards the DPRK and should move toward a peaceful coexistence with us.
The North Korean official also stressed that the current Korean War armistice agreement be shifted to a peace treaty.
We advanced various peace initiatives, including the one proposed in January 2010 on speedy opening of talks on replacing the ceasefire agreement with peace agreement.
Shin reiterated Pyongyang's basic stance that the issue of denuclearizing the North must be resolved in a peaceful manner through dialogue and negotiations with no preconditions. The latest remarks are being interpreted as part of North Korea's recent efforts to return to the negotiating table. In a report submitted to the Foreign Affairs and Unification Standing Committee on Tuesday, Seoul's Ministry of Unification said that the North is seeking change, but added those attempts have so far been unsuccessful. The ministry explained that despite Pyongyang's efforts to mend ties with China and its recent informal meetings with former U.S. officials, Washington remains firm in its demand that the North give up its nuclear program before opening talks. While the North is suspected of actively developing its nuclear technology, the focus is now on how the U.S. will respond to North Korea's latest request. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
The mother of Korean-American Kenneth Bae has spoken up for the first time since being allowed to visit her son who has been imprisoned in North Korea since November last year.
Myung-hee Bae, in a statement released Tuesday, said she was able to see her son 3 separate times during her stay in the North last week and was happy to report that his health is improving. However, she added that she is now more anxious than ever to bring her son home and that it broke her heart to leave him behind. Now, Kenneth Bae was sentenced to 15 years in a North Korean labor camp earlier this year for what the regime called hostile acts. He is reportedly suffering from a number of health issues, including diabetes, high blood pressure, and back problems. And it looks like officials from all but one member state of the 6-party denuclearization talks will be in South Korean capital this week.
South Korea's foreign ministry said Tuesday that representatives of the 5 countries, mostly vice ministers of foreign or IT-related ministries, except for North Korea, will meet on the sidelines of the Seoul Conference on Cyberspace 2013 to discuss mutual collaboration and measures on less sensitive IT and cyberspace issues. Seoul wants to establish multilateral conversation channels in various areas for peace and security in Northeast Asia. The Seoul Conference on Cyberspace 2013 kicks off Thursday at the COEX Convention Center in southern Seoul. The Korean government is considering adopting a U.S.-made missile defense system to strengthen its deterrence against North Korean attacks.
Right. As the plan takes shape, it is becoming more and more apparent that it could be the target of criticism. Our Jin-ju tells us why.
The Korean Army is reportedly eyeing the adoption of a U.S.-designed missile defense system called the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD, that could strike short, medium, and intermediate-range ballistic missiles in midair during their terminal phase. The plan falls in line with the government's efforts to build a multi-layered missile shield against North Korean attacks, in addition to a push to create its own defense system, the Korea Air and Missile Defense, or KMD, which targets low-flying missiles. The government is focusing on upgrading the country's current PAC-2 missiles imported from Germany to U.S.-made PAC-3 system in its development of the KMD. The Defense Ministry said on Tuesday it is mulling over plans to bring in an additional missile defense system for altitudes below 100 kilometers to strengthen its lower-tier defenses. THAAD missiles can reach an altitude of 40 to 150 kilometers. However, the plan is likely going to be met with criticism by those who believe that South Korea may eventually join Washington's missile defense system, since that is a key part of it. There has been speculation that the U.S., as part of its strategic rebalance toward Asia, wants Seoul to become part of its regional defense system in return for the postponement in the transfer of wartime operational control to South Korea to 2015. The cost of adopting the system is another problem. The ministry currently plans to bring in 2 THAAD systems, which would come with a price tag of more than 2 trillion won, or $1.9 billion. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features
restrictions is on the rise.
Closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature circumstances.
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
The United States, the latest report, less than
unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
Meaning came on maneuver trying to cover up the South coup intentions.
Moving on now to the ongoing crackdown of the nation's 38th largest conglomerate. Prosecutors raided the affiliates of cash-strapped Dongyang Group and the homes of its chairman and board members on Tuesday. Dongyang is being probed over allegations that it issued a massive number of fraudulent commercial papers and corporate bonds to investors despite its financial difficulties. 3 of the affiliates filed for court receivership at the end of last month. Prosecutors say they will analyze the documents seized and soon summon Dongyang Group officials and executives in for questioning. Some of the world's most distinguished intellectuals and innovators are in Seoul today for the start of the World Knowledge Forum, which runs until Thursday. The theme this year is One Asia Metamorphosis, in recognition of Asia's growing presence in the international community. Kim Yeon-ji reports.
The speakers at the 14th World Knowledge Forum say they recognize that the world needs fresh leadership as the strength of the U.S. and Europe has waned, along with the growth potential of China. Former Prime Minister of Thailand, Thaksin Shinawatra, says that an integrated Asia could offer new leadership by adopting a growth model that's different from the mass production model of the West. Shinawatra's idea of One Asia envisions connecting Asian countries with a high-speed logistics system that could boost local industries and small and medium-sized firms, allowing Asian entrepreneurs to tap into their creativity. Shinawatra stressed, however, that the One Asia vision can be achieved only when the participating countries settle political or territorial disputes. Meanwhile, Larry Summers of Harvard University said that Asia's role will only get bigger and predicted the U.S. would have a less dominant presence in the next century.
So I believe that the challenge that will determine whether all of this works out peacefully, equally, and freely for the benefit of people everywhere, that will be determined in the United States, and it will be determined in Asia.
When asked to offer his prescriptions for the Korean economy, Summers pointed to education, saying that the focus should be on producing creative thinkers. Creativity was a key point for many speakers, including Salman Khan, the founder of the Khan Academy, which offers thousands of academic videos in 23 languages for free. He said the best kind of education allows students to work at their own pace and take ownership of their learning. Over the next 2 days, the forum participants will have a chance to further explore ways to foster creativity across a range of disciplines and develop the One Asia concept in the domains of business, finance, and IT ventures. Kim Yeon-ji, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., optimism is in the air that a partial government shutdown that has paralyzed the nation for the past 2 weeks will be over soon. This comes after Senate leaders said they have made substantial progress in the flurry of negotiations on raising the federal debt ceiling. Connie Lee has more.
As the threat of a default looms in the United States, it looks like Senate leaders are finally closing in on a deal that could avert it at the 11th hour.
I'm very optimistic that we will reach an agreement that's reasonable in nature this week.
The leader of the Republican side also shared optimism that the partial government shutdown would end soon.
Let me just echo the remarks of my good friend, the Majority Leader, and I share his optimism that we're going to get a result that will be acceptable to both sides.
Under the temporary plan being discussed, a source familiar with the negotiations says a debt ceiling of $16.7 trillion would be raised to cover the nation's borrowing needs at least through mid-February of next year. That money would also fund government operations through mid-January, and the mass spending cuts that took effect last March would be kept in place.
And my hope is that a spirit of cooperation will move us forward.
President Obama's hopes will need to be fulfilled at least by Thursday, October 17th, or the day the federal government is forecast to run out of borrowing capacity. A meeting at the White House could soon happen, as the original meeting time of Monday afternoon was delayed to give the leaders more time to work out a deal. And once a deal is reached, it will require the approval in the House of Representatives, where Republicans are continuing to fight to include measures that would undercut the president's health care law, something the Democrats are unwilling to sacrifice. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Iran is promising a new proposal on its nuclear programs to break the deadlock at this week's international talks in Geneva. But given Iran's previous stance and recent statements by a high-ranking Iranian official, a final deal seems unlikely. Son Jang-in reports.
Iran has long insisted that it does not want nuclear weapons and that its nuclear program is entirely peaceful, a stance that has long been viewed with skepticism by Western nations. But Iranian nuclear negotiators say the country is ready to meet some international demands to reduce its nuclear activities and build trust. They say Iran is bringing a new proposal that it says will meet both goals to a meeting with 6 world powers, the United States, Russia, China, France, Britain, and Germany, on Iran's nuclear program in Geneva on Tuesday and Wednesday. Analysts say, however, that with a lot of conflicting demands on the table, no final deal is expected to be reached at the 2-day session. Iranian officials have suggested that the country's nearly 200 kilograms of 20% enriched uranium, which is close to the amount needed for a single nuclear weapon, could be diluted or used to make relatively harmless fuel cells for a research reactor in Tehran. However, the 6 powers want more from Iran. They are demanding that Iran ship out not only its store of 20% uranium, but also most of the tons of low-enriched uranium it has produced. Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, a senior member of Iran's negotiating team, says Tehran is ready to discuss its enrichment program, but would never ship enriched materials abroad. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told his parliament Monday that the international community must maintain firm pressure on Iran until it stops enriching uranium. Son Jang-in, Arirang News.
Tonight, we take a closer look at this year's Nobel Prize winners and try to determine what Koreans can do to boost their chances of bringing home the coveted award in the future.
And our Kim Ji-yeon joins us now in the studio to report on some of the lessons to be learned. Now, Ji-yeon, let's start with this year's winners of a Nobel Prize and their contribution to the world.
Earning a Nobel Prize is almost always a combination of years of hard work and dedication, and this year's winners are no exception. The winners of the 2013 Nobel Prize in Physics were honored nearly 50 years after theorizing how subatomic particles get their mass. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry went to 3 scientists based in the United States for developing computer models that can predict chemical reactions, something that can be used in creating new drugs. The Nobel Prize in Physiology went to 2 U.S. scientists and 1 German scientist for discovering how cells transport material, such as insulin, to different places in the human body. The Nobel Prize in Literature went to Canadian author Alice Munro for her short stories, and the Nobel Peace Prize went to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons for their monitoring work in Syria. And lastly, the Nobel Prize for Economics went to the trio from the United States for figuring out a way to determine trends in asset markets.
So, Chian, I noticed that there were no winners from Asia on that list, and that's a point that has been brought up many times over the years.
Right. Winners for this year are mostly from Western countries, especially the United States. And this was also apparent in winners of last year's prizes. Apart from Chinese author Mo Yan, no Asians won Nobel Prizes last year. The only Korean to win a Nobel Prize so far may be a former president, Kim Dae-jung. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2000 for his work in promoting democracy and human rights in South Korea, and in particular for promoting peace and reconciliation with North Korea through his so-called Sunshine Policy.
Right, so Chian, why are there so few laureates from Korea?
And I had this question in mind, so I visited Lee Do-ga from Seoul National University earlier today, who studies the selection trends of Nobel Prizes in the science fields. And he told me that the common factor for winners over the past 30 years is that they have something to do with a paradigm shift, or had a hand in discoveries that shifted the way of thinking from one model to a completely different one. Professor Yi said that Korea is often left out in the dark in the Nobel Prize race because of a general lack of discoveries that lead to this paradigm shift.
In the case of Korea, a lot of scientific developments are focused on technological advances to boost business, such as in smartphones, shipbuilding, and semiconductors. For a Korean to receive a Nobel Prize, there needs to be a renewed focus on the basic sciences.
Professor Yi added that paradigm shifts are often a byproduct of the discovery process rather than the result, where new ways of research tools or ideas are applied to solve a scientific question.
So what's next for Korea? Where can we place our hopes?
Well, for starters, Professor Yi recommended developing a funding system to people who study the basic sciences, or a system that guarantees high returns for those working in the basic sciences. For instance, he says it would be a good idea to use the National Institute of Health in the United States as a role model, as it funds those who engages in the studies of basic science. And also, he recommends a need for network for researchers in Korea and abroad.
Okay, hopefully at a sooner date we'll realize the goal of seeing a Korean win his Nobel Prize. Thank you very much, Jian, for your report.
My pleasure.
Over in the U.S., the LA Dodgers and St. Louis Cardinals faced off in Game 3 of the National League Championship Series.
And South Korean pitcher Ryu Hyun-jin got the ball for LA, a team in need of a crucial win. Stephen Che joins us to give us the rundown of the game. Stephen.
Hey guys, the Dodgers returned home, down 2 games in the series, and were looking to the lofty lefty to turn them around. It was looking grim for LA, with the batters having to face St. Louis ace Adam Wainwright. But Ryu kept him in it. He was in total control, giving up just 3 hits and a walk on 4 Ks and no runs in 7 innings of work. Meanwhile, the Dodgers' Adrian Gonzalez's RBI double in the 4th proved to be all they needed in the 3-0 win. The Dodgers and Cardinals meet in Game 4 on Tuesday night at Dodger Stadium. And coming closer to home, the Tucson Bears and the LG Twins gathered at their shared home of Chamshir Stadium on Tuesday for their KBO Playoff Media Day. Bears manager Kim Jin-wook said that a positive mentality would be key for his team, who are coming off a grueling 5-game series with the Nexen Heroes. Meanwhile, the Twins manager Kim Gi-tae said that avoiding mistakes would lead LG to success. Game 1 is at 6 p.m. on Wednesday in Seoul. And ending things off on the pitch, with South Korea taking on Mali in a friendly match in Cheonan Sports Stadium, it's going on to the first half. South Korea came out aggressive, but lacked that finishing touch, only getting 1 of 11 shots on goal. Well, Mali, though, made their 1 shot in their first half count. Maiga headed in the first goal 1-0, but in the 37th minute, Kujachol puts in the penalty kick, and it's 1-1 going into the second half. Now the action continues, and 20 seconds in, Korea's Hon Heung-min scores to get the go-ahead goal. Then some minutes later, just after subbing in, Kim Bo-kyung shoots it into the left corner, and South Korea goes up by 2, and they go on to win this one with a final score of 3-1, getting the much-needed morale boost. Now that does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Well, we got to see the first snow of the season on Mount Seorak today. Plus, there should be more snow on the mountains of northern Gangwon province later at night.
Yes, it is getting cold here in Korea. And for details, let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Bo-kyung, how's tomorrow shaping up?
Well, guys, tomorrow morning temperatures will drop to the single digits, and it should feel even colder due to strong winds. So please be sure to bundle up. For details, let's take a look at our satellite map. Now, the clouds are hovering above the East Coast regions, and it is still raining in those areas at this hour. Those of you in the East Coast regions may get about 40 millimeters of heavy precipitation until later tonight, so be sure to have an umbrella with you. Now, after the showers pass, tomorrow afternoon looks to be sunny throughout the country. Now, looking ahead at tomorrow's numbers, Seoul's morning temperature will drop to 7 degrees before reaching 17 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, cities down south should hit the high teens. Moving on to other regions, Daejeon drops to 6 degrees in the morning with a daytime high of 17. Meanwhile, there's news of snow on Mount Kumgang early tomorrow morning with a low of -2 degrees. Well, that's all for now, and I'll be back with more updates after midnight.
And that's our broadcast on this Tuesday night. I'm Yoo Ji-hae in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening. We'll see you soon.
The mini shops being open 24 hours.
The 24-hour service, the
places you can get. I like beer, so go and get a beer with my friend in the 24-hour convenience store. That's really good, so I'm happy with that.
I like Dongdaemun Market. Dongdaemun Market was really interesting, but we went there a little too early, so a lot of the stores were still closed.
Well, I've been there before, but it's really nice because there's many shops and different Korean designers, and I like that because I can pick up different clothes which are different and a bit quirky.
Delivery service. Actually, just a week ago, we ordered cheese and a couple of items from the Easy Shop online, and things were delivered to us within 24 hours, like the next day, and it was everything was great.
Public transportation. Public transportation.
Public transport.
Public transportation is absolutely superb. It's probably among the best in the world because the trains are clean, they're cheap, they go everywhere. You've got so many buses and those kind of things. It's simply one of the best transportation systems you find in any city, in any part of the world.
Taxis are convenient because they're easy to find, especially the orange ones, and they're also very